Hello, we see some people are starting to join. Thank you for tuning in today for our webinar. We'll go ahead and give everyone a couple more minutes to get started before we get started. But thank you for being here today.
See, we're starting to get some comments too, which is great.
Yay, love that.
Welcome, everyone.
Awesome. Well, let's go ahead and get started, Erin. So excited for today's webinar. There has been a lot of positive build up to today as we have had several requests from clients, from employees who we've supported for us to spend some time focusing on today's content, which is called Ace the Interview. I am Celia. I am WorkFriendly's co-founder and CEO. I am so excited to have Erin with me today. I'll pass it to Erin to give a brief introduction before we get started.
Thanks so much, Celia, and welcome, everyone. I'm Erin. I'm a people consultant and talent expert here at WorkFriendly. I partner with our clients on all things talent acquisition, and then also work closely with Celia to build out our WorkFriendly team internally. So I'm very excited to be able to share what we've learned over the course of our years of joint recruiting experience.
Awesome. Thank you, Erin. And Erin is the best recruiter I have ever had the pleasure of working with. So we really are learning from the best here today. For those of you who are maybe not as familiar with WorkFriendly, we just want to share a couple of quick slides to bring you up to speed or refresh your memories. WorkFriendly's mission is to support every business, no matter the size, no matter the stage they're at, with what we feel is every business's most important asset, their people. We support our clients with every aspect of the employee life cycle, starting with attraction, which we'll highlight today, through to exit and everything in between. At WorkFriendly, we are a consulting firm that focuses on a myriad of different things, one of those things being fractional human resources, as well as full cycle recruiting, technology partnership when it comes to HR and recruiting technologies, as well as providing coverage for things like, for example, parental leaves and otherwise. Today, we're going to focus on acing the interview. we're going to cover what recruiters are looking for as a candidate, how you can best tailor your resume, how to crush those tough interviews, and really help you nail getting that dream job. And with that, I'll go ahead and pass it to Erin to provide the agenda.
Thanks so much, Celia. Yeah, we'll start today by acknowledging that the struggle is real. We'll give you a snapshot into what we're seeing in the market, followed by some resume guidance, give you some tips and tricks for standing out and increase your likelihood of getting that interview. Then once you've secured the interview, giving you some best practices for really nailing those tough interview questions. And then we'll leave some time at the end of the session today for a brief Q&A. So starting off with the struggle is real. I imagine if you've been at this for some time, you have felt discouraged at times. We want you to know that's understandable considering it's a tough market out there. So here's what we're seeing by the numbers. LinkedIn open to work badges increased by almost 20%. Applications grew 4 times faster than requisitions in 2024. And for the third year in a row, we've seen voluntary turnover decline, which means there are less backfills and less open requisitions. So because the struggle is real, we are here to guide you. We want to start with some best practices for resumes and give you some tips and tricks for being able to tailor your resume so that you're successful in your own job search. So some winning adjustments for you. My first little piece of advice here is to make sure that your resume and LinkedIn profile are consistent. More times than not, when I'm working with hiring teams, they are relying on a LinkedIn profile almost as a complement to the traditional resume. So to avoid confusion, to avoid any claims that you're being purposefully misleading, I would recommend cross-referencing both of these to make sure that when you apply for your next role, they are consistent. So start and end date consistencies. Also make sure that if you have maybe a small contract role on your LinkedIn profile, that's also included on your resume. Again, to get on top of it, to avoid any confusion or any claims that you're being misleading in the job search. So Celia, I am curious, how do you, when you are adding to the Work Friendly team, look and rely on LinkedIn? What are some ways that a candidate can elevate their LinkedIn profile, or how does it potentially negative impact their candidacy?
Yeah, that's a great question. I honestly almost exclusively rely on LinkedIn. So I will look at a candidate's LinkedIn first, and then I'll actually use the resume as more of like a supporting factor to back up or expand upon the different roles that they have held. But I start with LinkedIn. I feel like some ways that candidates really stand out on LinkedIn are that about section on their profile. We recently were interviewing for an HRIS role, and there was a candidate I remember who had a really awesome about section. You could really just I got an immediate feel for who she was, her personality, and I was excited to have the opportunity to chat with her. Additionally, I think it's great when someone puts their photo on their LinkedIn. I know that's something that's been controversial or can be controversial, but again, just going back to really getting a feel of who someone is and their personality, and it just, you can feel that connection a little bit more immediately. So yes, those are all areas. And then last but not least, the number of mutual connections. If I see that I have even one, but when I have multiple mutual connections with a candidate, it's an immediate green flag for me. And I'm also able to reach out to some of those people and ask, hey, how do you know so-and-so? Or what has your experience been working with them? Or I'm really excited to get to know them, so on and so forth. So I really value LinkedIn as part of the recruiting process.
Yep. Don't discount the importance of LinkedIn in your job search. So second winning adjustment that I suggest is preparing multiple versions of a resume specific to particular roles and industries. And just to give you an example of this, let's say that you are an HR generalist, and so you have a traditional HR generalist resume. If you're applying for a role that's going to own the full cycle recruiting, the function at a company, and the job description is very, very clear that they want someone with pretty robust experience in this realm, make sure you have a resume that is specific to full cycle recruiting. So if you have a traditional HR generalist resume, chances are you have maybe 1 to 2 bullet points of how you've owned that function. Chances are that's not going to secure you an interview, especially if a recruiter is reviewing hundreds of resumes in a given day. So in order to secure that next step in the process and secure the interview, I really recommend having multiple versions that are specific to that particular role and that highlight your experience as it relates to it. So we already mentioned that the struggle is real, so transparency can help in this regard. Don't be shy, and I actually encourage you listing reasons for exit dates on your resume, especially if you've been impacted by something like return to office or reduction in force. So if you have an end date of, let's say, February 2025, there are plenty of examples online, or I'm able and happy to supply you with examples of how you can list being impacted maybe by a company-wide reduction in force. And then finally, be specific. If your current or former roles maybe don't have brand recognition, if they're not the PepsiCos, Googles, and Amazons of the world, make sure that you provide a little bit of information for the recruiter so they don't have to go that next step and do the research. Here's an example of something that I love to see on a resume. Series C medical device company specializing in XYZ prevents me from having to do that extra research, and also increases the likelihood, if my client is a Series C medical device company, that I'm going to move forward with that candidate and they're going to secure an interview. So again, Celia, would love to hear your thoughts. I know you've reviewed countless resumes as founder and CEO of WorkFriendly. What do you think can set a candidate apart and really secure that interview with us internally?
Yeah, great question. Well, I would say it's sad to say this, but there are so many people who submit countless applications, submit countless resumes, and accidentally submit the wrong resume or do not update their resume for the role that they are applying for. So just double tapping on what you said about customizing, also just making sure that you're really detail oriented within your job search. But additionally, some things that really stand out to me are when a client will include metrics. I think it provides just more insight into exactly what they were doing. So for example, in the HR space, if we are looking for a people consultant here at WorkFriendly and they have HRBP experience, understanding the makeup of the departments that they were partnering with, how many employees, what were, on average, how many employee relations, questions were they getting each day, or how many investigations were they maybe participating in on a regular basis, so on and so forth, just like really getting into the details. And then additionally, having a summary at the top of the resume that is that customization, why they are looking to apply for this particular role. We recently hosted a roundtable through WorkFriendly, and a question that came up at the roundtable was, are cover letters here to stay, or are they a thing of the past? And again, can be controversial, but my opinion is I think they're a little bit of a thing of the past, but a way that you can still include that same feel or focus of what would be covered in a cover letter is through that summary at the top of your resume, which gives the recruiter and the hiring manager an opportunity to really understand why this role, and also give a glimpse of your personality and who you are beyond just the roles that you've held and the accomplishments that you have had.
Absolutely. Again, it all ties back to personalization. How can you set yourself apart as a candidate? Great. All right. Well, let's move on. So you've secured an interview. Congratulations. Now, how can you be confident going into that interview and navigating some of the complexities of interviewing? So I really wanted to provide you with quick snapshot of how you can be prepared and confident as you continue on your job search. The first question that I ask every single candidate in every interview that I have is share your experience as it relates to the role. Inevitably, you're going to be asked this question, however it's phrased. It might be tell me about yourself. It might be share your experience. It might be walk me through your resume, but it is inevitable. You will be asked it. And yet the irony is that so few people actually prepare for it. People see it as a softball. How hard could it be to talk about myself and what I do? And the reality of the situation is it is a very difficult question, and it is one that trips up the majority of candidates that I interview. So cannot stress this enough. Craft a concise, engaging narrative that highlights your experience specific to that role. Practice in the mirror. Feel very, very confident that you're going to be asked that question and be confident in the answer that you're providing. So every question, tell me about your experience as it relates to the role. Celia, I'm curious, how do you start your work-friendly interviews?
Yeah, that is such a good one. And I remember going back to I haven't interviewed in a long time, but I can tell you on the sales side, and when I was an independent fractional consultant selling myself, that was the first question that always came up. And so I got really good at practicing and securing my personal elevator pitch, as you call it. Which, same thing when you're selling a product, when you're selling a service, or when you're selling yourself, so to speak, through an interview. So just love that. And the first question I ask without fail is why work friendly? What about the interview process so far has made you want to continue to pursue this opportunity? So that I feel like is just, it's most important at the stage that I'm interviewing candidates, because I'm typically the third or the fourth person that they are meeting with. They've had the opportunity to interview with Erin. They've had a culture interview with two of our consultants. They've had a skills interview. They've met with head of client relations, our co-founder and head of operations, so on and so forth. So I'm always curious, what has made you want to continue down this path? And what is one of the most important things to me is that anyone we're bringing on at Work Friendly really believes in our mission. They are aligned with what we are doing here, and they're passionate about it. So that's where I focus. And I'll tell you, when I'm reading the interview notes, the first thing that I'm reading is the notes that Erin takes in regards to this first question, tell me about yourself. That's where I get my snapshot of the candidate that I'm about to meet with.
And I love thinking about it as an elevator pitch. Sell yourself. And it is the first introduction that the interviewer has to you. So I think that is, if you prepare for nothing else in an interview, be prepared to answer that question. But this next point really ties into what you were saying, Celia. Do your research, know the company, even if it's just at the screening stage. All of my hiring teams want me to ask a question about why this company, why this opportunity, and they are looking for thoughtful responses. So make sure that you're looking at company websites, at their LinkedIn pages. Do your research. What's the latest news? Did they have a successful closing, or did they meet a goal or close a large client? Definitely bonus points if you can refer back to something specific. My next piece of advice would be match the interviewer's tone. So really defer to the interviewer to set the stage. You're going to get, even within the same company or even on the same day, if you're in a panel interview, you might have one straight shooter who's down to business and another who's more conversational and wants to have an unstructured conversation. As long as you're maintaining your professionalism, really defer to the interviewer's tone. The reason I say that is it could be strategic. I know I like to have one interviewer in particular with any of my clients throughout the interview process be that cultural alignment, culture add interview. So they're purposefully having an unstructured conversation to see if this person is going to be a good addition to the team, to the company, and be culturally aligned. So that's why I say match the interviewer's tone, always maintain that professionalism, but defer to them to some extent. And then these next 2 points really go hand in hand. So have thoughtful questions prepared. Again, we've already talked about it. Bonus points for being able to relate back to something that I've said. So if you are interviewing with Celia, she's the final step in the interview process at Work Friendly. If you can mention something that our head of client relations mentioned in our earlier interview, or refer back to something I said, it's going to show that you're incredibly invested, that you're paying attention, that you are active in this journey with us at Work Friendly as we're interviewing you, and it's going to tip the scale and set you apart from other candidates. With that said, make sure you're listen actively and pivoting when necessary. I unfortunately just had a situation yesterday with a candidate where he came prepared with answered questions to ask of me, but unfortunately I had answered all of those already. So instead of pivoting, he repeated questions and content that we had already covered in the interview process. And it just showed that he was either not actively listening and engaged throughout the conversation, or unfortunately couldn't necessarily pivot the conversation, and it ultimately hurt his candidacy. So that's kind of a two-part question. Celia, when you get to the question stage, how are you assessing candidates, and what goes into your decision-making when you consider the questions they ask of you?
Yes, absolutely. Good question. I love someone who, in an interview, and all of our interviews are virtual for the most part, so I can see what the candidate's doing. I love when a candidate will be like, I wrote down all of these questions, and they'll show me their notebook or, the sheet of paper in which they're about to read from, because it just shows they're taking this seriously. They're excited. They've done their research, and they're invested. And then two-part to that, whenever a candidate asks me something about the long-term vision of Work Friendly, or, where do we want to be, X number of years from now, what's Work Friendly's end game? I love those questions, because that is showing me that this person is not just looking for a job, they're looking for their next, home, and they're in it with us, and they're passionate about what we're building, and they want to be a part of helping us continue to build all that is Work Friendly. So I love when questions are asked around just like forward, futuristic, what's next, and then to your point of remembering and referencing back previous conversations they've had with the team. I absolutely love when a candidate, it's not so much a question, but when they will make reference to, oh, I interviewed with Erin, and I actually also have kids about the same age as Erin. Oh, I saw Ashley went to University of Illinois. I went there too. Or I had a really, great interview with Ben. He's your tough interviewer at Work Friendly. Like those little things, right, that show you they've gotten to know multiple members of our team beyond just the focus of the interview, but they've gotten a sense of maybe the roles we play, or our personalities, or personal backgrounds. I love that. Active listening is extremely important. I'm with you on that.
Yeah, very invested in the process. That'll go a long way. So speaking of controversial, I know we discussed it with cover letters. We could have a whole webinar on that. So thank you notes. When in doubt, I say do them. I cannot tell you how many times a candidate has been disqualified from the process because they didn't send a thank you note. Still very important to particular hiring teams, hiring managers, companies, industries. So we have had thank you notes tip the scale internally as we're hiring. We've had 2 late stage candidates, finalists. We were discussing which to move forward with, a bit conflicted. And we did have a thank you note, a very thoughtful thank you note, tip the scale. So Celia, what's your thought process as it relates specifically to thank you notes?
They are a must. I'll tell you, we've had, just piggyback on that, a candidate who I was over the moon so excited about. And I remember waiting for the thank you note and waiting and asking our hiring team, has anyone else gotten one? No one got one. And it immediately put a sour taste in my mouth, especially being the type of company we are. We're client facing, we're a service organization. So I really value that follow up.
Yep. And I say, again, when in doubt, do it and make sure that it relates back directly to the conversation that you had with that particular interviewer. We share our thank you notes internally. So if they're carbon copies of the other, that's actually going to do a little disservice as a candidate. Okay, so my mantra in life and in recruiting is it only takes one. So for those of you who are on this call, if you are feeling discouraged, know that this next resume that you submit or interview that you have might be the one. We are here to support you on it. Please feel free to reach out if you have any questions about your own job search. But in the last 3 minutes that we have together, I want to open it up to Q&A. Celia, did we have any questions that came in?
Yes, we had a couple. We have 3 minutes, so we'll try to get through as many as we can. But I'll go ahead and get started with, okay, let's go on the candidate side. I feel like I'm struggling to secure an interview because in this market, it feels like you have to know someone or have a referral source. Any tips or strategies for getting around that, Erin?
Yeah, leverage LinkedIn. I think you already alluded to this a little bit, Celia, but common connections. So the first thing that I would do is if you're interested in a particular role or a particular company, look to see if you have any mutual connections. If you don't have any mutual connections, see if you have anyone in your alumni network. Maybe you are from the same hometown, you have the same interests. The beauty of LinkedIn is that it is created to be a networking site. So there's no shame in cold outreach. And more often than not, someone would be receptive to having a conversation with you. So back to it, all it takes is one. Getting your resume in the hands of the right people is really a big step in the right direction. So leverage LinkedIn to the best of your ability if you don't have a direct referral source.
Awesome. And then with about a minute, how do you feel about using AI in the recruitment process, Erin?
I use it, but I use it sparingly. So I use it as a complement to my own work, not as a replacement. It can be a really powerful tool in creating certain efficiencies. Greenhouse, for example, has a great new AI tool where it will create and auto-populate interview questions based on your job description and the scorecard that you create. But again, it requires my oversight because there are certain interviewers that should be asking certain questions at certain times in the interview stage. So it's not a true one-to-one replacement, but it is a powerful tool when used in the right instance.
I couldn't agree more. Thank you for that. We have several other questions. We're not going to have time to get through them today, but please take us up on reaching out. If you'd like to continue the conversation further, we are happy to help you. And so appreciative of all of you who joined. And we hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you so much, Erin, for sharing your expertise.
Of course. Thank you for joining me and sharing your expertise as CEO and co-founder. I think it's really helpful to understand what you're looking for when you hire internally for our team.
I love it. Thank you, Erin. Have a good day, everybody.
Thank you.